Buying a townhouse can be really exciting. We want to talk today about the pros and the cons to buying a townhouse right after this. Hey, this is Jared Chamberlain. We are here today talking about living in a townhouse. Now, you may be thinking of making a big purchase, your first purchase even, maybe coming out of a rental, downsizing, whatever it is, we've got you covered because we're talking about 4 pros and 4 cons about living in a townhouse. And I am joined by the wonderful Simi Ajla.
Hello,
welcome.
everyone. Hello.
And so I'm excited. This is going to be a great topic.
I think so.
We have a lot of people always talking about this. But let's start off and kind of set the ground rules a little bit. What is a townhouse? Because you hear people saying condo.
Yeah.
And you hear people saying townhouse. But are they the same thing? What do you think?
I mean, it can be both.
Yeah.
Right? In a way, because you often do find townhomes that are a part of a condominium complex where they are managed by a company.
Totally.
And then there are a few communities in our city that do have townhomes that are not managed.
Yeah. So you can definitely find some condos that don't have condo fees. Mm-hmm. And they're just really more called a row townhouse.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then there's other ones where you can have villas to, 4 or 5 in a row, townhouse 2, 3, even sometimes 4-story.
Yeah.
Like kind of different types of builds. Some with drive under garages.
Yeah.
Garages in the back, no garages, parking stalls, like everything in between.
They're definitely getting really creative with how they're building these townhomes because it is becoming such a popular style of home that a lot of people are wanting to buy now.
Yeah.
So I've noticed a lot of interesting layouts.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Well, let's jump right in. Let's talk about some of the pros and some of the cons to living in a townhouse. But let's start with the pros first. So
let's do it.
Let's do it. So the first pro is it can be a fantastic property. If you're coming from renting a property to move into a townhouse, you kind of skip this whole condo thing and jumping right in. And why is that? Like, why is it better sometimes for someone to jump into a townhouse versus an apartment when they're maybe making their first purchase?
So I find that it is kind of a nice transitional home because townhomes often feel like they're enough space. Yeah. Whereas when you're coming from a condo, it often feels like it's not enough.
Totally.
So a townhome is a good way for you to get into the feeling of a home, but maybe not take on the responsibilities that a single family home offers.
Yeah, that's a good point. Mm-hmm. And the irony of that, and I don't think you meant to do this, but the next point that we have is our ongoing costs and management costs.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the things that you've seen in terms of management or maintenance costs and ongoing costs in a townhouse?
So often when you are a part of a condo management company, right, with the condo, usually they're in charge of removing snow. They do some landscaping. They do a lot of the maintenance around the complex, which is just another thing you don't have to worry about. At least like the exterior of the building is being managed by somebody else.
Totally.
And then as well, another portion of that is your property tax is often a little bit lower, which is a nice thing you don't have to worry about paying as much of.
And the thing with condo fees too is your condo fees in townhouses don't typically include utilities. So they don't usually include your like utilities and electricity and those kind of things. So
water, heat.
Heat. So typically you're going to end up just be paying for your exterior maintenance, reserve funds, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So you still will have your monthly utilities on top of it. So that would be part of the monthly cost is utilities, condo fees. What else could be there?
Insurance. Insurance is a really big one as well. Of course, you're going to want to still get insurance for your personal belongings, but often, and you are going to want to read into this one if you are purchasing one that does have condo fees, usually the exterior insurance is covered in those fees that you pay.
In the condo fees?
Yeah, in the condo fees.
Yeah. Because the condo complex will have insurance on the property itself. Because basically when you own a townhouse, you own drywall in.
Yeah, I always say the front door in.
Front door in, totally. Well, because if there's something wrong in between the walls, plumbing, electricity, anything like that, that is all covered by the condo board.
That's right.
So you got to call them to get problems done with that. And
that's right.
So that's so it's all good. So it's definitely, I wouldn't necessarily say it's cheaper monthly or year over year than than a house. If you buy a really good house that's in really good shape compared to a really good condo, I've never ran the numbers, but I would assume it would be close.
I think it's fair to assume on average
Yeah.
for most townhomes and most homes, it is going to save you a little bit money on average.
Well, also your price is cheaper.
Yeah.
In terms of your purchase price too.
Absolutely.
Right? So.
And I mean, the space you're occupying is often a little bit less compared to a single family dwelling.
Totally.
So, you know, you save a little bit of money that way.
Yeah. So our third pro, so the first one was it's great move up property coming from renting. The second one was your ongoing costs and your maintenance. And then your third one is your affordability for a specific community. So what do we mean by this?
So what I mean when we talk about this is that it's a good way for you to get your foot in the door if you have your eyes on a certain community.
Yeah.
Let's say Tuxedo Park is a community that you really want to live in, but you might not be able to afford a piece of land or like a single family dwelling. Well, a townhome often will be a little bit more affordable. So it might be right up your alley in terms of what you can afford. So it's a good way for you to get your foot in the door in a community that you have your eye on at a price that you can actually afford.
Yeah, and the location.
Yeah.
Like, because another one that I'm thinking of is a couple of years ago, we helped someone just buy a townhome in Inglewood. So they weren't able to afford the houses in Inglewood.
Yeah.
But like there's some really good townhouse complexes and they're all older. So they're really, as long as you get into a good complex and it's run well, then it can be a great purchase, right?
Absolutely.
So that's it. And there's lots of communities around the whole city like that.
And I think this goes without saying, but if you are purchasing one that does have condo fees, please get those condo documents reviewed.
Yes.
It is really critical.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you want to make sure that you're purchasing a healthy condo, and it starts with reviewing all of those documents, and you don't have to know them exactly yourself, so just hire somebody who does.
Totally. Absolutely. Well, that actually kind of leads into the fourth pro, because the fourth pro that we have is it's great for future investment. And part of that is when you're doing your condo doc inspections, I should say, is if you are thinking that you could end up keeping that as a rental in the future, to check into that when you're doing your condo fees or your condo inspections, because sometimes in those documents, they might have rules around how many units can be rented, if you can rent it, whatever. So you just want to check into that if you are planning on it, but buying a townhouse can be a great investment. Right?
Absolutely. And often in the condo documents, it will actually disclose how many units are owner occupied and how many units are tenant occupied.
Many times they do.
Yeah. So the sweet thing about it is that you can purchase an affordable property at a time in your life where, you know, maybe you're making a first purchase or maybe it's a second purchase. The nice thing is that you might be able to hold on to it so that when you are moving up, if you're able to hold on to two mortgages, you can have a tenant potentially paying your mortgage for the townhome. And then you, of course, go ahead and move up. And then you have two assets in your column.
That is correct. Done and done. Yeah. All right. Cons. So we've got 4 pros and we got 4 cons. And so the first con is if you choose to buy a townhome over maybe like a smaller starter home or something like that, depending on the community, not everywhere, but you might outgrow that townhome sooner than you would have in a single family, smaller starter detached property, right?
Yes.
So do you have any stories around this? Any clients that you've seen?
Yeah. Well, often, let's say it's a young couple, usually the next thing that they'll want to do is either get a dog or a cat.
Yeah.
Or maybe they decide to have a baby. And then often your family starts growing a little bit quicker than maybe you were anticipating. And 2 bedrooms might have been okay from the point that you had purchased, but now maybe you need 3 or maybe you need 4. So I do find people do tend to outgrow them, usually within 3 to 5 years. Now that's not a hard number, but often you do outgrow them a little faster.
Yeah. So and that's where it comes back to our last pro, like be a little bit proactive.
Yeah.
I mean, having someone to turn it into a rental could be a great thing too, right?
Absolutely. So I think that you always have to think future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. And so the second con is your proximity to neighbors. So as you know, when you move into one of these places, you're side by side, right? In these row townhouses. So your proximity can be kind of tight. Your yards, if you have a yard, right? Sometimes they're common spaces and they're open. Sometimes they have little fences that divide them. It just depends on the complex. But you're like hey, what are you having for dinner tonight?
Yeah.
Right.
Or are you making a smoothie? Can you make me one? Because you might be able to hear it. Yeah. So proximity to neighbors is you're pretty close.
Yeah.
Often it might feel a little claustrophobic,
Yep.
especially if you're in the middle. If you're on a corner, it's a little bit better. But you're pretty close to your neighbors. I mean, often at least one or two walls will be attached to somebody else.
Yeah. And part of that too, and this wasn't really one of the cons, but if you're in a middle unit, sometimes you only have windows on the front and back.
Yeah.
Right? So those corner units, if you can get that instead, sometimes there's windows in your stairwell or something in the living room. So now you might have 3 sides of windows. So if you want a townhouse and you like natural light, that is something to think about for sure. So yeah.
A corner unit.
All right, number 3. This is interesting because we actually had a debate about this, everybody. We were talking about it. She won arm wrestles. That's right. The gun show. But we were talking about, you tell about it. The tight stairs, square footage.
Yeah. Well, what I was trying to say is that often when you do go into some of the newer style townhomes,
totally.
Depending on if it does have a garage built in, sometimes you'll walk in and the first thing you will see is a set of stairs.
Yeah.
If that's not the case, and if you walk into the main level, then there's usually going to be at least one set of stairs to get to the upstairs. So I feel like the stairs are a little bit more narrow.
Yep.
Jared doesn't 100% agree with me, but I think it just depends on the townhome, of course, that you find. So what we're trying to say is that they're often built up versus out.
Exactly.
So they're built tall.
Yeah, they are. Well, you got to think about you have to think about it. You're buying, you're not buying the land necessarily. And sometimes you don't even own the land because there's no RPR attached to it or whatever. And so you're not buying a piece of land where you can build on that land. You're buying into a complex that is a part of this land and you get this section, right? So they have to maximize their space and their value and where you might be feeling, so what I was saying too is you might feel the tighter square footage on the stairs could be because they're trying to maximize living space.
For sure.
Right? It's not like you sleep or breathe on the stairs.
I think it's also,
I mean?
For sure. And I think that's why you have to just be careful with the townhome because you really have to assess where you're at in your life.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about downsizing in the very, very near future,
Good point.
Then maybe the townhome isn't the best fit for you because stairs might be something that eventually...
Well, the multi-level ones.
Yeah, the 3 to 4 levels.
But if you go to the villas, so it's basically can be an attached duplex where it's a villa bungalow. And some of those can be 1,500 square foot, villa type product. And that's great to move down to because they'll typically also have like a double attached garage. So it's kind of like living in a bungalow, but you have all of your exterior maintenance taken care of, right? Yeah,
for sure. I think you just have to be really smart with where you end up finding one.
Yeah.
But there's options out there.
And all of these products, and the thing with townhouses is they're all over the city. Like there's all the different types of from villas to 3 stories and everything in between to condo fees with no condo fees. You can find all of this all throughout the city. So it's kind of an interesting product. So, but the fourth con that we have is that a lot of times when you have a condo fee, you are a part of a condo complex, right? And when you're a part of a condo complex, that means you're buying into a corporation. And like Simi said earlier, you got to get your condo docs reviewed when you're purchasing because you want to make sure the condo corporation is healthy, right?
Yeah, run well.
So maybe talk a little bit about that.
So when it comes to the condo management, you have to understand that there are certain things that you can and can't do.
Yep.
And people don't necessarily like being told what they can and can't do.
True.
So you just have to be careful when you're purchasing into one of these types of situations that you're purchasing a good unit in a healthy state, but as well that the management company is actually reputable and doing a good job of taking care of its residents because there will be a board in your condo and you can join it actually as well.
Well, the board is made up of the people of the complex. The people of the complex.
So you just want to make sure that it is run well. And if you can get on the board, try to get on it so that you have a say in how it's run because it might not always be up to you.
And when you're doing those reviews, you also want to make sure that like the bylaws. So your bylaws that are in there, the pet rules, anything like that you're going to be using this space for, like make sure that it's done well, right?
Well, speaking of the bylaws, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because another really common thing that's been coming up lately is Airbnb.
Right.
So in your
good
bylaws, it will actually tell you whether commercial use is permitted or not.
Yep.
Most times it's not, but you can find a few buildings that will allow it. So if Airbnb is something that you do want to do in the future, just make sure that you do take a really close look at the bylaws, just to see if commercial use is permitted.
Totally. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I didn't even think. Well, I don't usually think of townhouses and Airbnbs. For some reason, it's always apartments.
But you have to, right?
No, I know, and people do it. It just slipped my mind. So
yeah.
Well, there you go. Well, this is good. I think we got a
great.
good list here, everybody. What would you say? So 4 cons, 4 pros to living in a townhouse. So if you are considering buying a townhouse or you want to have further conversations, you can always reach out to us, info@chamberlaingroup.ca, and you can reach out to Simi at simi@chamberlaingroup.ca, and that's SIMMI.
That's correct.
That is correct. But reach out to us and let us know if we can help, because moving up into a townhouse or moving down into your townhouse can be a big, big change. And we want to be here to help you guys. So that's what we have. I don't know. Any other final thoughts? Any words of wisdom that you want to bestow upon the people of the complex?
I think when you're looking to buy a townhome, just, make sure that it's going to be a right fit for at least the next 3 years. You don't want to outgrow it too fast.
Yeah.
So just really pay critical attention to the space and how much stuff you have.
Yeah.
And then second, again, just make sure you get those condo documents reviewed if it is a part of a condo, and if it's not, paint your door orange and change your siding to whatever color you want. Have fun with it.
You actually can't do that easily, so don't do that. Don't do that. All right, well, we're out of here. Thank you, everybody, and hopefully this is helpful and you enjoy moving up or down into your townhouse. We'll see you guys later.